Wonderful. So I'm very pleased today to have Adam Siegel from the UC Davis Libraries and the Research Services to help us explore more of what the offerings are here at the UC Davis Library, because they are immense. And as graduate students, you know, we're here to do research, and the librarians can be your very best friends in understanding what kinds of resources you have available to you, as well as how to just navigate the systems that exist. And a lot of it that you can do independently, but it's really helpful to have a you know, a thoughtful partner in that process. And that's why we're really lucky to have such great librarians here at UC Davis. So I did just said to folks that we're going to have a presentation from Adam, and then they'll be followed by a Q&A session, and that will be recorded and added to the DHI YouTube page, which I'll send out a link for. So that means that if questions come up as we're talking, you can go ahead and put them in the chat, and I'll be monitoring the chat, and I can pass those on to Adam. Or, you know, we're not a particularly large group, so you should feel free to unmute yourself or share your video at the end when we're doing question and answer, and you can just ask Adam directly. Okay, so with that, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Adam, is there anything I can do, or I'll just hand it over to you?
No, that's fine, Stephanie. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen in a second, and I'm also going to turn my own video off because, like most of us, I sometimes have connectivity problems while I'm multitasking. So
No problem.
nice to see you. I'll click my video on again at some point, but for the time being, I'm going to be just a name, just a white on black name on the screen. So, yeah, I'm going to start in with screen sharing and get you off to where we're going to begin while I launch. So, as most of you know, this is the library's main web page, and this is, for better or worse, going to be the portal that allows you to do most of the research you're going to be doing, certainly over the course of the next, however many months it is. Shields is open. You can go into the library. You can check books out. You can actually still have books delivered to your home address, and we'll discuss all that in a minute. But I do want to sort of give you a brief overview of how libraries are, especially big research libraries, are arranged. There are, it's a very crude heuristic, but I think it's applicable, is that, one of the main things that distinguishes the humanities from the sciences is that science, science makes science. Science tests hypotheses, uses empirical data to test them, strives for reproducibility, and builds on that which came before. The humanities are largely, but not entirely engaged with arguments. French Revolution, good or bad? Who knows? Too soon to tell. But and that's also going to color the way we look for research to support the arguments we make as humanists. In the sciences, most of the tools that the library provides are fairly straightforward. If you are a cognitive scientist or a biologist or a clinician, it's expected that your mastery of the scholarly literature that informs your own research should be exhaustive, meaning you should be able to account for every advance that's been made in your field, since, well, however far back you take it. If you're an historian of science, it might be as far back as Galen or Hippocrates or something, but for the most of us, it's going to be past 5, 10, 15 years, because science, quote, moves fast, and the conventions of scientific publishing are such that you can assume that whatever bibliography you're looking at for whatever article you're reading is going to be comprehensive. And when I say bibliography, I should stress that as a librarian, I'm first and foremost concerned with bibliographies. And so what I often will give advice on is how to make your bibliography as good as it can be. Are you comprehensively surveying the relevant literature in your field? Have you chased down every avenue you can go down to make sure that you have you've assembled the appropriate research to support the argument you're making? That's where librarians can be helpful. In part because compared to the sciences, the humanities can be kind of messy, and I mean that in the most positive sense of the term. If you are a clinical psychologist and you need to do research in your field, there's really only one place you need to go. There's an index called PsycInfo, and it comprehensively surveys all the relevant literature in the cognitive and behavioral and psychological sciences since around 1840. And for most psychologists, especially those who are not practicing, but psychologists in the academy, if it's not in PsycInfo, it's not really worth looking at, because it's, by definition, it's sort of a walled garden, and everything inside the walled garden is useful and valid and valuable, and everything outside it, it might be interesting, it might be useful for somebody, but it's not something that you have to worry about. The same is often true in other fields like biology, where biosys is the main index that everybody uses. But in humanities, you can be doing anything. You are often, historically, if you were a humanist, you were working with texts. You were a philologist. You were combing through manuscripts and trying to construct the authoritative version of Homer's, of the Iliad or something. Or you are an historian, and you are relying on primary sources that you find in archives. So humanists have historically tended to deal with a lot of documents, and I include music scores, the visual arts, film in that category. These are all texts, regardless of format, that can be closely read, analyzed, and summed up, for an audience. It's important to remember that the word text itself comes from Latin textum, which means that which is woven together, textiles. And so humanists are generally take one of two tags. They either look at the text itself, and when I say text, I could say a film like The Wizard of Oz, or a symphony by Mozart, or a novel by Willa Cather, or even the diary of an anonymous merchant in 18th century Amsterdam. The text itself can be, unwoven to see how it's put together. That's sort of the classic literary criticism technique. How does Zora Neale Hurston get her effects? And their eyes are watching God. Or the text itself is a mirror. What does this work tell us about, X? How can we use this to shine a light on Y? Now, all these are interesting questions, and they make library research complex, because it's not enough to find the primary sources that you rely on, those texts. It's a matter of framing your arguments, and once you've framed your arguments, you have so much work to do. You have to, if you are choosing to use the text as a mirror, or look at some phenomena in the humanities, particularly the digital humanities, that can reveal something about something, to be crude, you have an awful lot of reading to do. There's a milieu you have to place yourself in. There's an historicity that you may have to incorporate. There is a deep engagement with a theoretical or philosophical approach that you may be using for method, whatever your method of research is. And these can vary. These can vary in your cohort. Even if you're in a very small graduate program, it's likely that there are 7 of you. I don't know how many are in some of the humanities departments this year, but if say there are 7 people in your cohort, probably all of you are doing something entirely different, and each one of you may be having to bring to bear a completely different set of resources in order to pursue your project. That's just how things work in the humanities, which means that this website that we're all looking at right now will behave very, very differently depending on who you are, what you're researching, what your area of interest is, and what approach you're making. Unfortunately, and I saw this in some of the questions that came in from Stephanie beforehand, thank you very much for those. Our UC Davis Library website is not that, it's a rather forbidding, I call it a wall and not a door. It doesn't make it easy for you, in part because we insist on using the Search Library Catalog Plus articles, which some of you have already discovered is a really suboptimal tool for finding things. So I'll show you how to get around that in a second. I need to step back and not look at my screen. And Stephanie, because I can't see the chat, will you let me know when we have questions, if questions come up, if they're coming in from the comments? But any of you, feel free to unmute yourselves at any time and let me know you want me to talk about something. And I'm going to make sure that my, sorry, I think I have lost, here we go. Desktop. Here, there. And can you all see the web page again?
Looks good. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, cool, great. All right, excellent. Okay, first up, the very first thing that you need to know about when you do library research is the VPN. And I don't know if you can see my mouse, so I'm simply going to highlight up here in the top right corner, Access VPN. Now, all of you should have Pulse Secure, which is our campus VPN client, installed on your computer. I can't imagine, especially given the last 8 months, that anybody is able to do anything without having Pulse Secure installed on their computer. If you haven't installed it, please do so at your earliest convenience. It's not hard. We have guides, videos, all the variations depending whether you're running a Wintel or a Mac. Or if you're brave enough to have a Linux machine, you can install it yourself. We have a FAQ which should answer most of the problems we see are answered in the FAQ. They generally have to deal with making sure that if you have a Mac, that your security settings allow you to install software. So it's about a 90-second process to install this. Once you do have it installed, you have access to all the electronic stuff that the library pays around, I don't know, close to $7 million a year for, $6.5, $7 million a year for. That includes big databases like JSTOR and MLA, International Bibliography, and it includes 40, 50,000 journals that we subscribe to online, and on and on and on. So how do we find all this electronic stuff? Like I said, the library would like you to believe that this is the best way to find it, but it's actually not, particularly if you are a humanist who's starting out on a project and maybe is even new to the Davis campus and doesn't even know yet what we have, where we have it, what's around, what's out there, what's good, what's bad, how to make sense of all of it. There's around 5 million items in the Davis libraries, books, journals, government documents, artwork, but mostly books. And then there's around 40 million more that are held at the various UC campuses, which hopefully by the time you finish, interlibrary loan will be working again. That's been the main problem I've seen with the pandemic, is our inability to get anything that's not currently on the Davis campus, unless somebody kindly scans it for us, which I've had to avail myself of a couple of times. But in order to get started, I would encourage you to get off this page as quickly as possible. And you can see where the subject guides tab is up here. It's also the same thing down here in this little box. But the subject guides are put together by librarians to help shape, guide, and not shape, but guide you while you do your research. They're not meant to steer you in any one direction. They're simply meant to present you with the best options for doing research in a given field, largely because this campus is so huge and we cover so much disciplinary ground, I think more than any other UC campus, which means, if you're a humanist, you'll be doing, your research may be very different from that done by your counterparts in, say, sociology or molecular biology or what have you. And our subject guides more or less match themselves to the departments and programs that are in HARCS. and the Humanities, Arts, Cultural Studies cluster in the Letters and Sciences College. As you can see, if you're working on film and media studies or fashion and costume or textile and design or languages and lits or music or cultural studies or ethnic studies, there are different subject guides which will point out resources that are particular to your discipline. I have found in general that this top subject guide that says Research Services for the Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences covers the broadest ground for the most people. As you can see, it lets you, this is sort of applies for when we were actually face-to-face in Shields, so you can disregard that. But down below, here's some of our librarians. Here's me. Oh, we've done it away with it. Okay, let me see if I can find it. That's not going to work. Scratch that. But that is us. If you want to find out the librarians, I personally work with the departments. I'll click them off. Classics, comparative literature, French, German, Italian, Russian, theater, dance, and performance studies. And I also handle some social sciences, business and econ, linguistics. I also work with the Middle Eastern and South Asian Studies program. So let's scroll up here. Here we go. So this is what I meant to find. Do you see where I am in the middle of the page? Selected multidisciplinary resources, arts, humanities, and social sciences. That's where I'd like you to go. Because this is going to, if you need to find articles in the humanities and social sciences, here are some of the big indexing databases that cover the humanities and social sciences. And that includes, as you can see how broad we are, it includes science stuff, business stuff, social science stuff. It includes Google Scholar. Google Scholar with the VPN turned on, especially right now in 2020, is probably, and I didn't used to say this, so I've really made a sea change in how I view this stuff. Google Scholar is probably one of the best ways to get your hands on current literature right now. I don't love it. I find it problematic in lots and lots of ways. But right now, without an access to our print collections in Shields, I just have to sort of suck it up and take it. Why don't I like Google Scholar? Well, I'll show you. If I'm working on a topic such as, let's see, some of you actually have topics. Tabletop gaming. Okay, you can see right away we get 3,520 results, some of which are patents, some of which are textbooks, some of which are patent. A lot of what we're getting from the top is patents. And that's always the question I have with Google Scholar, which is, why am I seeing the top results? What's motivating? What's the algorithm that's bringing these resources and documents to the top as opposed to something else? And the answer, of course, is that it's a trade secret and Google won't tell you. Whereas if you use an index, the index ideally will tell you exactly why you got the results you got. It does tell me, though, that if I'm interested in tabletop gaming and design, I probably need to look in the computer and gaming literature, which may be someplace very different than the general multidisciplinary resources that we provide for the arts, humanities, and social sciences. So right off the bat, I'm a grad student affiliated with DHI, and I'm interested in this topic. I may be interested in it from a humanities perspective, cultural studies, a cultural studies perspective, but it's likely that I'm going to have to engage deeply with the computational or computer gaming literature, which means I have to, scroll through the subject guides and possibly check out the computer science literature, which is very, very different from the humanities literature. And it's not my field. You can see that there's another librarian, Melinda Livas, who works with people who are researching, doing computer science research, and you may well want to reach out to her and say, I'm interested in tabletop gaming. I need to access the computational and gaming literature, and can you show me how to do that? The resources I'm scrolling through are very, very, very different from most of the resources that the mainstream of humanities folks, people, English majors, history grad students, Langs and Lits, theater and dance, performance studies, music, etc. So, but let's see, I'll go back to Google Scholar again. But it does give me a sense of the field. It's not perfect. I don't love it. I'm going to presumably have to look through a lot of patents. It's already suggesting narrow my research, which I'm grateful for, while at the same time being somewhat suspicious about why Google thinks I want to see what I want to see, certain things, not see other things. So that's one thing that sort of exists independently of the library. But why the VPN is so important, as you can see, and I'll highlight this one, with the VPN turned on, a lot of these articles, in many cases, are now, the publisher now recognizes your IP address as a valid UCD IP address, and hence makes that article available to you. So it's a okay way of, I would say Google Scholar is useful for those of you who are mixing and matching some disparate disciplines. Or if you're doing something so incredibly specific that it's very likely that hardly anybody is working on your topic. At one point I was interested in Czech and puppet and theater in the interwar period. And I can promise you that when you do this search, you only get 9 results. So Google Scholar is great if you want to see if anything but anything is published in your field. And it's also pretty good for giving you a sense of where the scholarship you're interested in may be published. Some of it may be found over here, and I wish I had my camera turned on so you could see me gesturing with my hands to indicate spatiality. So some of your literature is found over here in this field, and some of it's found over here in that field. I'm going to stop for a second, take a breath. I'm mindful that I would much rather be in a classroom with y'all than working like this. So I want to be mindful of you as an audience to make sure that I'm not going through things too quickly. Okay, great. So I'm looking at some of the prompts. So somebody had a question about how to download a technical paper when not on campus. Technical papers, here we go. Technical reports is a huge subset of scholarship that's known as gray literature. Libraries used to be the only places you could get this stuff. You can see that we have sort of a general, contact us if you need help finding them. Most of the technical reports that we support access to, and this is going to be true throughout the world, are published by the government or by agencies that are contracted to, generally the federal government, but also state governments. The single best source for finding technical reports is at the bottom of this list. It's the National Technical Reports Library. And this is, despite the fact that it's including, and this may have been where the questioner ran afoul, it's a .gov. It's actually put out by the U.S. Department of Commerce. So this website should be freely available to anybody, anywhere, at any time. Everything in it should be completely open access, which means that you may be finding technical reports that weren't authored by the federal government. Maybe they were authored, again, by a contractor or a corporation. My preferred solution for finding technical reports, that I would start here, I guess to answer your question, start here and look for the technical report within the National Library. simply because, one of the great things about the federal government, the cabinet level agencies, is each one of them generally has a mandate to make sure that scientific literature scholarship is findable. So this is the Department of Commerce is responsible for technical reports, the Department of Transportation for the transportation literature, Department of Education for education scholarship, the Health and Human Services for clinical and health sciences scholarship. And so their ambit is to identify and describe the literature as comprehensively as possible. Remember, all these things are set up to be as comprehensive as possible. And where people in the humanities sometimes get not tripped up, but often, like I said, often humanists have methodologically and textually, I'd say, for lack of a better term, complex projects that they pursue, which means that they often have to be familiar with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 different indexing databases, that each of which comprehensively describes a subset of the scientific literature. If you are looking for technical reports, and and you can't find them in the library, again, in the COVID-19 era, I would advise you to just use the internet. A lot of stuff is being published faster than the libraries can catalog it and make it available through the library interface. So I do encourage you to Google things, but be mindful of some of the top levels, the advanced search possibilities that you have. Some of my favorites are CiteGov and file type PDF. So if I'm looking for a technical report on topic X and I just want to make sure it's available, I'm likely to find it if the federal government or state government has made it available. And file type PDF means that I will get the report itself and not a web page. If it's important enough for them to publish, they're likely to make sure that it's available in PDF format and not some other file type. And so what do I mean? Let's look for a technical report on, and I don't know what the topic is, so I'm going to make something up. If I'm interested in, let's just say tabletop gaming. And again, we're getting stuff from the education literature, which is kind of interesting to me. And then again, Patent and Trade Office, Gaming Control Boards, copyright, which is the Library of Congress, etc. So this actually suggests to me that if I'm interested in tabletop game design, in addition to the computer science literature, perhaps I want to spend a little bit of time not in the arts and humanities, but down below in the social science literature, where it's likely that people who work in education and pedagogy are interested in incorporating gamification, gaming technologies, game design, etc., into the educational process. And you'll see that each subject guide is going to have a very different set of resources. We subscribe to probably something around 1,350, 1,400 different databases that cover almost everything you can imagine, which is why using the subject guides as an orientation device is so useful, because half a dozen subject guides will probably present you with every possible permutation of the research tools you need to comprehensively survey even the most complex and groundbreaking. Again, this is also, you're typically in the humanities, you're often doing really groundbreaking research because you're bringing together work from fields that have not talked to each other, as they say in the past. And in this case, often a subject guide, if you want to know where to begin, if they're not in alphabetical order, the default's alphabetical. So if it's not in alphabetical order, it means that the librarian has put number 1 there for a reason. And if you go to the first line, you would assume it's in alphabetical order. But if we go down, you can see that it's actually not. LLBA, which covers the language behavioral literature, is last. So either education or ERIC would be a good place. We already saw ERIC, the reference over here. What does it look like when we click through here? It actually takes me directly to the full text of the article. And as you can see, this is a post-print of an article published in the International Journal of Environmental and Science Education. And because it's open access, yes, it's got a Creative Commons attribution. So the author said, make this, the author or the publisher said, make this available. Now, often that stuff's behind a paywall. If the author didn't make it available, you'll have to use the VPN to get through and even to see the ProQuest version. This database, this is the same version as the federal government's version. The interface is a little different, and in many cases, the ProQuest product, will provide you with full text that the federal government does not, simply because ProQuest is a for-profit publisher, can strike deals, can cut deals with other publishers to make their content available. So I'm curious about using this. What will I find here? Yeah, so here's our article. Now, a good index, and ERIC is an excellent index, is really a tool for creating sets of like things. Again, I'm primarily concerned with bibliographies, so I'm interested in seeing how many like things can I find if I look around. So if I'm interested in tabletop gaming and I want to know how much more stuff about tabletop gaming can I find in this particular index, a good indexing database will have described the article so well using consistent search terms, subject headings, or descriptors that allow me to find more stuff like this. So I may need to only look at, if I'm interested in tabletop gaming and education, over here, you can see that they've already made it possible for me to check on the subjects that I'm most interested in, and then search for them and see how much other stuff is like that is out here. And you can see we went up to 168 results. I may want to add, and you can see that there's a command line language, subject exact. I can also put tabletop if I'm interested in making sure that I'm talking about tabletop gaming and not other kinds of gaming. And I have gotten 0 results, which could be because I have a quote here. Nope, it's because that term doesn't occur with these subject descriptions. That's okay. The good thing about a good index is that it's very forgiving, and it allows me to, excuse me while I delete all this. It's not that there was nothing, it's just that there was nothing, there's actually not that much, but still, if I'm in the humanities and I understand that I have to look through a number of different indexing databases, that's just something that I have to factor in to my search. I mean, most of these resources are deep but somewhat narrow. Like the educational literature, there will be some overlap with, say, sociology or psychology or computer design or wildlife biology, but it's always going to be from the perspective of how does this intersect with education. So there will be literature that's useful for science teachers, but not for field biologists. There'll be stuff that's useful for people who work for educational software companies, but not literature that's useful for people who don't work at other kinds of banking software companies, healthcare software companies. So depending on your topic or your project, you may have to just accept that you're going to, the best way to review the literature is to go through as many different indexes as possible. As you get used to it, you will notice that there are a handful, monopolization occurs everywhere, market consolidation, and ProQuest dominates the humanities and social sciences indexes field. So if you click on change databases for a given index, you can see that Davis probably licenses, I don't know, about 60 different indexes, online resources, various kinds. You can search across all of these simultaneously. This includes the ProQuest theses and dissertations, the dissertation abstracts, where someday your dissertation will, or your master's thesis will end up. And so you can search across all these things simultaneously. You do lose some things. You lose the ability to do that subject searching that I showed you a second ago. But if you do have a very sort of recondite topic that incorporates a lot of disparate stuff, this may be useful for you, because if you've got enough proper nouns or very specific terms, it's going to prevent you from having to wade through the 17,000, 150,000 results that you might, if you were looking for something like post-colonial and American literature or something, without being specific about what you're looking for. So this, again, these are tools that you have because you have access to the VPN. Citations.
Adam, sorry, we actually have 2 questions from the chat that I think are pretty useful.
Yes,
because it's
please.
Folks in the
Yes,
room.
I'll pause for breath and take your questions. Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so there are two very separate questions. One is around VPN access, and so thank you for showing us where to access that and what the FAQs or videos are. If there are students who are continuing to having trouble for any reason, is there like a hotline or a group that they should
Yes,
reach out to? Yeah, and then so that's the first one, and then the second one is around accessing archives and special collections.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you. Those are great questions. Yes, there is a FAQ, and I'm going to stop my own video again and go back into the share. So back on the, okay, so y'all can see this. Is it okay? Great. Access VPN. If you have problems, scroll down, help, or submit a TSR, a technical support request. This will take you directly to the library. And somebody at the library, you can say, yeah, you can just click on off campus and describe what you're getting, and you should get one of our IT people get back to you pretty quickly and let you know what the problem might be. And if they can't help you, if it's something that's like it has to do with CAS, the central authentication service, they'll put you in touch with campus IT. But this TSR, technical support request, is where you look for problems that just can't be solved by troubleshooting via the FAQ. Archives. Yeah, so archival research is really tough right now for obvious reasons. I believe that some archival services at Shields and special collections are available by appointment only. I'm not quite sure. Things have changed a little bit over the course of the fall quarter. They should have an up-to-date web page. If you are interested in a particular archive, let's see. So, and again, our terrible navigation on the library's website. Services. Let's see if I can even find special collections. So here is, yeah, you can use this to register, ask for materials. And I believe they will scan stuff for you if they can. And I think they may also be able to, you may be able to see them in the building. I'm not sure. We should have a COVID-19 services update somewhere on the library's homepage. Ah, here we go. It's this green library resources and services. And it's taking its sweet time to load. I apologize. There we go. Fall quarter FAQ, student support and study space. Right, yeah, so since, as of last month, archives and special collections is by appointment only, which is terrific. So you have a question about the Louise Owen archive. So if you want to know, and I guess the question is, do you want to know about it or what we have or how to get access to it? I guess I can review the, whoops. I'll stop share and can review the, yeah, I hear there's a Lewis Owens archive at UCD. Thank you. Okay, so let's share again.
And it looks like the questions are
And
both, how do you search it, but then also how do you find out like what materials are in it?
yeah, okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is one of those things where I can tell, let's see, okay, so I am not an archivist. I've worked in and around archives for a while. I can promise you, if you look for a specific database, there is something called the Online Archive of California, OAC for short. It is a publicly available website. It is not behind the VPN. And it is maintained by the California Digital Library, which is sort of the online library arm of all the UCs. They're headquartered in Oakland. And this is where you go looking for archival resources in California. If you want to look across the US, I'll show you how to do that in a second. So Lewis Owens's papers, sure enough, are in UC Davis Special Collections. And if I click here, it will take me to a description. Now, right, okay. Ah, right, he must have, yeah, he was right before I got here. Okay, yeah, so his papers are in fact in Special Collections. Special Collections is open. You, the researcher, should be able to access this collection, provided you make an appointment. And if you want to know what's inside it before you get ready, you can see that the library has made what we call the collection guide or the finding aid available. So you can click on either the PDF or this web page and look through a description of what's in the collection. And it looks like they have not fully oh, here we go, here it is. Here's the finding aid. Here's the finding aid. Come on. Here we go. Oh, it's opening it up as a PDF. Okay, and now I have to open. Okay, so here's a PDF of the finding aid for the Lewis Owens archive. Okay, great. Now we know what's in it. Box 1, correspondence. Here's some with Gerald Visner, John Steinbeck, articles about my work, et cetera, et cetera. So you can go through this and find out exactly what is in his archives and papers, and tell the special collections staff, I'm interested in, you know, box 4 or box 17 or something, and they will make sure that that's brought off site. I think, I'm not sure, some of these things are held at our regional storage facility, which is in Richmond. It's called the Northern Regional Library Facility, NRLF for short. And until this, at least the last couple weeks ago, it's been closed since March because it's subject to both Berkeley campus restrictions and Contra Costa County restrictions. So we have not been able to get stuff from them for a long time. I heard a rumor that they're going to start sending stuff out again. So again, talk to Special Collections if you're interested in this archive, see what we've got on campus and what we have off campus and how hard it will be to get access to the stuff that's off campus. It's possible that they may be scanning stuff down at the RLF and just sending you the PDFs. So having access to the finding aids, you can tell them exactly what you're looking for, is certainly going to save you time, make the search process much more straightforward and less complex, even under COVID pandemic conditions. So that's how we found it. So I'll just to recap, as you can see, I always end up with a lot of tabs open. I'm going to go back to an earlier, excuse me, an earlier tab. So I already knew that the Online Archive of California exists. It's, if you want to find all the archival search tools that we have, again, start with the subject guides. And in this case, you're not looking for a particular discipline. In fact, yeah, that's why I have to do that, because archives and special collections all the way at the bottom maintain their own separate set of things. And I can't even remember if that's part of university archives or one of the other special collections. But trust me when I tell you that the OAC is the single best resource for searching through what we have in special collections. If you are looking ahead toward life beyond COVID, when we can all travel and go to other libraries again, you may want to rely on another tool called Archive Grid, which does the same thing as the Online Archive of California, but it does it for all of the US. And here it is. It's not maintained by the University of California. It's maintained by a very big outfit called OCLC, which is in Ohio. And it's going to provide you with an overview of special collections all over. You can see it's already got a map, and for whatever the default setting is New York, so it always thinks that I'm in New York, which I'm not. So Lewis Owens. So it looks like his papers are held not only at UC Davis, but some materials by or about him are at, oh, it's not this, is it this? Yeah, it's the same one. Are at Northeastern State, which is in Oklahoma. But you can see that it's a very, we have over 2,000 results. So these two resources, the OAC, Online Archive of California, and Archive Grid, both of which are just open websites. You don't need to be behind the VPN to get to either one of them. Will provide you with a comprehensive overview of archival holdings, either in California at both, and for the Online Archive of California, it's not just UC archives, it's also historical societies, the state library, the CSUs, community colleges, county libraries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if it's in California and it's archival, the OAC should provide you access to all their collections.
Thank you, Adam. We have two other questions that are on a
Oh,
slightly different
yes,
topic.
please.
They're around file management systems. So the first is a pretty straightforward question of, will the library be offering any workshops on tools like Zotero or Endnote or other kinds of file management tools? And then there was another kind of just general advice on like, what kind of file management might we do that leads to the literature review section, it looks like. So yeah, questions about file management, what tools are available, and how the library would handle those.
It used to be so much more straightforward. For many years, the College of Biological Sciences had an institutional license for Endnote, which everybody on the campus could use. And they decided around 4 years ago or so that they weren't going to maintain that license anymore. There is right now no official campus license for any particular bibliographic management tool. It's my anecdotal experience, and actually it's my own experience, is that most people in the if you can make, again, those crude heuristics between the humanities and the sciences. Sciences people are Mendeley users, humanities people are Zotero users. We do have some librarians who offer classes on bibliographic management. If you go back to the subject guides and look for citation management, there's citation styles. You will see, what else? Let's see, MLA, this is the style guides, citation generators, right? So you can see what the free tools we currently make available. We should have, right, Zotero Bib. At the bottom of this very lengthy subject guide, you can see that we write citation manager comparison, EndNote, writing help. You can actually get assistance through writing consultation programs. And as far as librarians who specialize in citation management, there are a couple. We are not offering in-person courses the way we were, and there used to be a calendar on the library's webpage that said, the drop-in class, on using EndNote for the social sciences or the sciences is being taught, in Shields 165 this Tuesday at noon. Let's take a look for EndNote. Does it show up anywhere on this page? No, it does not. So let's go back to the library's homepage. And I'm going to search within our web page. which is not good. Yeah, you can see that these, we have EndNote, right, we do offer EndNote training via our YouTube channel, but that's, again, just for EndNote. If you do have a request on instruction, I think you can just use this and let them know. And a librarian, one of a couple librarians who really work heavily with EndNote users will get back to you. Yeah, once the campus license was canceled, it sort of scattered a lot of resources and expertise to the winds. Again, I find my experience has been most people are happy with Zotero. I use it myself for my own projects. One thing I should point out to you, which I mentioned earlier, and I'm glad this came up, is that almost every, why do we use indexes like the ProQuest client versus the USD DOE client? One of the add-ons that the ProQuest tools, they provide you with a lot of built-in citation management tools. You know, you can set up your own account, you can save records to files, you can export records into the citation management of your choice. You can build bibliographies on the fly by creating the citations, which are formatted by whatever style guide you're using. Every good indexing database should do this. So I would say if I were just starting out and I were, you know, a brand new grad student in the humanities, I personally would probably set up a Zotero account and just start exporting all the citations that I encounter, particularly within the walled gardens of a lot of these subscription indexes, into my Zotero library. That's just my own personal advice. I know people who rely heavily on Mendeley. I know people who have their own personal EndNote accounts. I know people who bother with none of it and simply, you know, they use note cards or just have, you know, an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of their citations. It depends. But there are, yeah, if you look on the website, library's website, you can see that we do offer, and you can always contact us. You can contact me offline or just contact researcher services or fill out one of these requests, and a librarian will get back to you very quickly and let you know about what you should be doing for you know, citation management. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that was great. There was a question again about which tool do you recommend for STEM? Was it Mendeley? Is that what you said?
My again, that's anecdotal. I find that more people in STEM fields rely on Mendeley. I think the reason for that is because Mendeley is an Elsevier product, and it works really well with tools like Scopus, which is a very big, and if you don't know, Elsevier is a big commercial publisher that is the bane of libraries. If you look for Elsevier on the library's web page, you will see that we have an entire page devoted to what to do, because Elsevier journals are really expensive, and the UCs are currently out of contract with the publisher and have been for about 2 years. So we're not getting new stuff from Elsevier, and it's about, you know, I don't know how many tens of thousands of journals that is. But Mendeley works, you know, so Elsevier has lots of journals. Elsevier also maintains a big database called Scopus, which does a, I don't love it because it's sort of a sloppy database. It offers lots and lots of records, but, you know, not a lot of quality control. But Mendeley works really well with Scopus. And so, and a lot of, for disciplines that rely heavily on the contemporary English language peer-reviewed scholarly literature, which is typically people in STEM fields where it's all about the journal articles. A tool that works seamlessly with the index that you're relying on heavily is advisable. But if you are doing, you know, a mix of archival research, or you're still reading books for your research, or you're reading materials in foreign languages for your research, or what have you, I don't think there's any particular, Mendeley isn't any better Zotero. I find that in fact, I find that Zotero is really good for, it works really well with library catalogs, which is what I've used it for. And when I say library catalogs, these are the sorts of things where if we go to the library's homepage, if you're actually looking for something that's on the shelves at Shields, say we're looking for a book on nanotechnology and popular culture. And so what we're going to get here as we leave the library's main webpage is, as these little diamonds continue. Okay, great. So assuming I'm interested in going in, actually look at this. While it's loading, you can see that we've got a lot of electronic books. Most of our results are in fact are electronic, which means I don't even have to go into Shields to get technology and cancer, stem cell. So all the same things that I can do for citation management, export. These can be exported into Zotero libraries really easy. If you have a Zotero client installed on your computer, as with the Pulse Secure, it's even easier. You can just turn that on and have it just sort of slurp up whatever's on your screen. Again, but at 6 of one, half a dozen of another. There's a sort of path dependency. So, whatever you decide to pick it early and be consistent, because you don't want to, have like 4 or 5 different citation management software packages on your computer that don't talk to each other, and you forget that you had one. So try and keep your citations in one place, as soon as possible in the project as you can. So what you choose is up to you. But I will tell you that most of your colleagues rely on Zotero, at least in the humanities.
We are unfortunately at 1 o'clock. I feel like there's so much more you could show us, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, we work right again because everybody's got a different project, and I do encourage you to reach out to me. One-to-one appointments, are they available? Absolutely, please. I think my contact information is available here in the. I actually put it in the. I'll put it in the. I am available at apsiegel at ucdavis.edu. I can type. Yeah, apsiegel at ucdavis.edu. So please, yes.
Thank you.
And especially if you're having Pulse Secure questions or things that I covered, yeah, we cover a lot of I mean, yes, you, as you can see, just looking at tabletop gaming took us in a half a dozen different directions. So I appreciate your attention. I really appreciate your questions. And I am very, very happy to work with you one-on-one. Obviously, in a time of Zoom reference, I think that's probably going to be more effective for most of us. So please do contact me if you have any questions or want me to work with you on your project. Not just general questions, but I'm doing research on X. What should I do? I'm very happy. If I can't help you, I'll refer you to somebody who can.
And again, why librarians are the greatest, right there. Thank you so much, Adam, and to everyone who joined us,
Okay,
live.
thank you everybody so much. Have a great afternoon, great holiday.
I wanted to let.
Oh yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Stephanie.
Yeah, I wanted to let everyone know too that we will have another event in the PhD Unlimited series on December 15th. Specifically about community engaged scholarship and the Mellon Public Scholars Program, which is now accepting applications. So thanks to everyone. I'm going to stop our